Okay, we're continuing with the book here, The Hidden History of Nutrition and Health Science by me, Pete Rogers. This book just came out about a month ago, and we're going to be talking in this lecture about a different book called The Medical Reformation, which was also written by me 2 years ago in 2024. I called it The Medical Reformation because I felt that, in a sense, I was sharing the message like Martin Luther had shared. Martin Luther had said, the simplest peasant with scripture knows more than the Pope does without it. And what I'm getting at is the low-fat vegan diet with no oil, it is the most powerful thing in all of healthcare. There is nothing even in its ballpark. And I would find it funny that these health coaches, these third world savages, they were better able to help a patient than the head of an Ivy League internal medicine department because they simply understood this is a healthy diet where people eat low-fat plant-based diets, starch-based diets. There is no hypertension, there's no diabetes, nobody's overweight, there's no coronary artery disease. So I thought that was kind of funny. And this is Martin Luther before Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, at the Diet of Worms. Okay, here I stand, I can do no other. If you can find the error in my book, show me, and I will throw the book into the fire. But until then, I stand on what I have written. Okay, and what's my point? I mean, look at it, come on. Hypertension, what a crock of BS hypertension is, all right? They will tell you in the standard books to this day, 95% of hypertension is idiopathic, of unknown cause, essential, meaning the same thing, therefore nobody knows what causes it, take our pill, slow it down. But when you think about it, it's obvious. High-fat diets stick the red blood cells together, make the blood thick, sodium vasoconstricts, narrowing the arteries, so you got to pump thick blood through a narrowed system. That causes hypertension. It's not rocket science. Anybody could minimize it by just eating a low-fat diet and minimizing dietary sodium. You also benefit from the internal ions inside of cells, potassium and magnesium. Okay. And then what I noticed, it's the same for all the diseases, all the common diseases. They say the same thing basically about atherosclerosis. It's associated with aging. Nobody really knows. Cholesterol makes it worse. We can never cure it, but take this pill, a statin, try to slow it down. Same thing about diabetes. We don't know why they get it for sure, but just take our pill, try to slow it down. You know, it's a crock of BS. Autoimmune disease, we don't know what causes it, but just take our pill, try to slow it down. Arthritis, we don't know what causes it, take our pill, try to slow it down. Dementia, we don't know what causes it, take our pill, try to slow it down. Back pain, we don't know what causes it, take our pill, try to slow it down. Gastroesophageal reflux, we don't know what causes it, take our pill, try to slow it down. That's what they always say, and it's a crock of BS, okay? You know, Dr. McDougall and Dr. T. Colin Campbell said about 75% of disease is due to poor diet. And I would add that things are a little more complicated these days. You know, Dr. T. Colin Campbell, he's 90 years old. Dr. McDougall died about 2 years ago. He was 77. So what I'm trying to say is those are old guys. Not that I'm a spring chicken. I'm 63 years old, but I've had exposure to a lot more toxicology, biochemistry, molecular biology than those guys. And I can tell you this stuff is highly relevant. Toxicology is killing a lot of people. Not just bad food, but contaminants in the food, toxins in the food, toxins in the water. Okay? And this idea of the cure rate being 0% as it is with pills, you can't cure a dietary disease with a pill. It reminded me of Dante and Virgil standing before the gates of hell, where the sign said, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter." I mean, only a dumb shit would accept that as the final best option. Conventional medicine is honest, at least. It tells the patient, we could never cure you. Our cure rate is 0%. Never, ever, never. I mean, why would anybody want to accept that at face value? Why wouldn't you want to search for a better cure? The other thing, though, is I'm different than Luther. Luther, you know, started Protestantism. I think the Pope screwed up. I think the Pope should have made Luther an order. The Lutherans, like you've got the Dominicans, you've got the Franciscans, for example, okay? And I also think that nutrition should be incorporated into conventional medicine. Now, don't get me wrong. Conventional medicine doesn't want it because it's like, if people learn about that, they'll start curing patients and we'll lose money selling drugs. But what I've seen is almost nobody wants it. You know, 95% of the patients or more, they don't want to hear it, okay? So it's only going to apply to a very small, that little intellectual group of people, which at most could be 20%, but in reality right now it's less than 1%. So, you know, I think it was a disaster that Christendom is broken apart. And I don't want to see conventional medicine broken apart. There's a lot of things about it that actually are good. But It'd be nice if this plant-based diet could find a little tiny corner somewhere where it's allowed, okay? Because it's not allowed. I mean, they'll get some lightweight, high-fat phony or something, have them come in and tell everybody to take omega-3 supplements or some other nonsense. But I'm not welcome anywhere. I've never been invited to speak at a university. Medical students will offer me to speak, but I'll say, make sure you check with your attending, and they never come back, okay? I'm banned from the universities, etc., because I tell the truth, because they don't want the truth getting out there. And my closest friends will tell me the same thing. We could never allow you to speak because you would humiliate us, show that our books are a joke. What you're saying is obviously true. It's the best health information in the world that's available. The videos of you and McDougall are the best health videos on the internet. But that will never, ever be allowed in conventional medicine. So I agree, but I wish we could be like a little order. The low-fat vegans, stuck in a corner somewhere. I wish we could get reimbursed for it and make some money with it. But like I said, the day that medicine gets reformed will be the day hell freezes over. I did a video on that with that picture of the devil skating on hell frozen over. Anyways, this is the kind of things that are in the book. Just an explanation of leaky gut, how you need dietary fiber to maintain the enterocytes, the tight junctions. They're produced by the dietary fiber converted by the good bacteria into butyrate, 4-carbon fatty acid, short-chain fatty acid, taken up by the enterocytes to make tight junctions. That butyrate travels in the blood to the brain. It's used to make the blood-brain barrier, the tight junctions of the blood-brain barrier. So without it, you're screwed. If you don't eat your dietary fiber, you're screwed. The average American's only eating 5 to 12 grams a day. That's nothing. At a minimum, you should eat 50 grams of fiber a day. Burkett says our ancestors probably eating 100 or 100 more grams per day. Okay, so leaky gut is ubiquitous. And it causes prothrombotic blood because of amyloid transformation of the fibrinogen clotting protein, and it causes brain inflammation because of the leaky blood-brain barrier. The same endotoxins of bacteria that get through the leaky gut, they get through the leaky blood-brain barrier, and they irritate the surface of the brain. The microglia overreact, release inflammatory chemicals, cause brain inflammation, collateral damage to your neurons. Okay. So basically, I rewrote the internal medicine textbooks and corrected them because they're totally wrong, they're totally stupid. And I went through all the diseases that were relevant. And conventional medicine is good for trauma. It's good for emergencies, good for acute disease, good for some end-stage things like do a kidney transplant, put a patient on dialysis. It's good for all that. And some other things too. But for the chronic Western diseases, it's a joke. This is just a picture showing amyloid transformation, the normal alpha helix secondary protein structure within hydrogen bonds gets converted into beta pleated sheets with inter between separate molecules, hydrogen bonds, and they stack up, they all bind together. The bigger the molecular weight of a molecule in aqueous solution, the more likely it is to precipitate to clot. So it forms clots, 2 to 200 microns, and they go all over the body, plugging up arteries in the brain, making the person stupid, cognitive decline, going to the heart, plugging up the arteries of the heart, causing atrial fibrillation, eventually causing congestive heart failure. These are super common. Iron overload does the same thing. Viral infections do the same thing. So it's not uncommon. An old poor person is iron overloaded and they've got leaky gut and they'll get an occasional viral infection. Disaster. And their blood's prothrombotic because they're also estrogen overloaded. So anyways, that's where the whole medical reformation came from. Then I was going to make a second edition of medical reformation and write this other book, kind of something along those lines. And my girlfriend at that time, now my wife, told me, no, write short books. Because that's what everybody wants. They just care about their own disease. Nobody cares about these big books. No one's going to read that book. She said, people just want to know they got autoimmune disease, read autoimmune disease. So there's my prevent and reverse autoimmune disease. They got AFib, CHF, they want that. So I wrote how to prevent AFib and CHF. Then I also was interested in mitochondria because mitochondria are the energy factor of the cell. And I'd seen Michael Brownlee's paper that mitochondria inhibition of the inner mitochondrial membrane by fat, in particular sat fat, causes insulin resistance and diabetes type 2. So this guy, Nick Lane, wrote a great book about mitochondria called Transformer. It's a fantastic book. He's got really good YouTube videos on the internet as well. Okay. Anyways, so I started trying to understand mitochondrial inhibition. I own like 7, 8 biochemistry books, nutritional biochemistry books, and there was not a single word about mitochondrial inhibition in any of them. None, zero, nada. So I started going through the papers. I found over 120 of them, okay? And they're really, really common. Wait till you see how common they are. They're so common, it's scary, okay? First of all, processed food. The atrazine sprayed on corn, it's a mitochondria inhibitor. The glyphosate sprayed on soy and 70 other foods, it's a mitochondria inhibitor. The fluoride in your water, it's a mitochondria inhibitor. The aluminum in your tap water, it's a mitochondria inhibitor. The cadmium that contaminates a lot of processed food, it's a mitochondria inhibitor. The mercury that contaminates high fructose corn syrup, quite often, it's a mitochondria inhibitor. Most antibiotics, quinolones, aminoglycosides, beta-lactams, they're all mitochondrial inhibitors. Many cardiac drugs, including beta blockers, statins, they're mitochondrial inhibitors. Many psychiatric drugs, including antidepressants, tricyclic antidepressants, and selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, mitochondrial inhibitors. Okay, antipsychotics like Haldol, mitochondrial inhibitor. Okay, it's a freaking disaster. Lead, of course, mitochondrial inhibitor. Eating fried food, the toxic aldehyde byproduct, that's omega-6 cooking oils, fried food, hydroxynonenal, it's a mitochondrial inhibitor. What a disaster. Aspirin, mitochondrial inhibitor. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like for arthritis, mitochondrial inhibitor. Tylenol, mitochondrial inhibitor. Okay, kind of scary. The dry cleaners, trichloroethylene, mitochondrial inhibitor. Okay, cyanide, mitochondrial inhibitor. And what about cyanide in your vitamin B12 supplement, in your almonds, okay, in your flax, mitochondrial inhibitor, okay? Kind of scary, all right? So THC in marijuana can inhibit mitochondria. Not good. Anti-epilepsy drugs, mitochondria inhibitors. Chronic corticosteroid therapy causes mitochondrial dysfunction. Not good. Iron overload causes mitochondrial dysfunction. Okay, so you see it, a lot of people are exposed to 15 or 20 of these. So that's a freaking disaster. Okay, alcohol damages enzymes related to mitochondrial function. So this is why so many people, they get the dwindles and they can never turn it around. So you want to be like Adam and Eve, keep your indoor heating and plumbing, but, be like Adam and Eve, but keep your indoor heating and plumbing. Otherwise, you're screwed. Because I see tons and tons of old people, 55 and older, especially 60 and older, and they're just going downhill. They have no idea what's happening. What's happening to me? Somebody says, hey, take some omega-3. Drink some olive oil. Sayonara, bye-bye. Crash and burn. Now, you got to turn it around big time. Take dramatic positive action. Minimize. Get away from all this stuff. You're basically being slowly poisoned to death, okay? And they're too stupid to realize it. Their doctor doesn't know it. So nobody knows it. And they just keep getting worse. And once they lose their cognitive function and their zest for living, their motivation to learn and study and change, they're toast. They never get better. The cure rate's 0%. Nobody expects to cure them. All the books say, the most common cause of dementia is Alzheimer's. That's nonsense. It's not the most common cause, but that's what they say. And they give them pills that don't work, and then they never get better. Cure rate's 0. Okay. Anyways, this is what's happening. And the point I'm saying, all the stuff I'm saying should give a person tremendous hope. I'm basically saying we figured out most of what's going on, and you could change it. So why not change it? Okay, so basically my theory was sort of an advanced, sophisticated version of the calcium theory, the excitotoxin theory. I call my version of it supply and demand theory. There's the Jack Delatory hypoperfusion theory. So basically you have a baseline neuronal function, okay, metabolic rate of a neuron, baseline oxygen and glucose delivery. Well, if you eat a high-fat diet, sodium diet, you drop the oxygen and glucose delivery. Same thing if you eat a vasoconstrictor diet like caffeine. You drop oxygen and glucose delivery. Then if you stimulate the neuron, like with caffeine or tobacco or other stimulants, cocaine, glyphosate, aspartame, other NMDA activators, like beta amyloid protein due to high-fat diets, you raise the metabolic rate. The wider this gap, the more likely that neuron's going to go into apoptosis. But it's really worse than that. If you then subsequently also ingest mitochondrial inhibitors, now you've diminished the capacity of this neuron to make ATP. So it's like widening this gap. The neuron's dead. It's like if you owned a slave. Imagine you owned a slave, okay? And you told the slave, I want you to work harder, okay? And the slave's like, give me more food. You say, no, I'm taking your food away. And he goes, well, how can I work harder if you take my food away? Shut up and get back to work. I want you to work harder. And then you take a whip and you whip the slave in the legs. And you say, work harder, go faster. He's like, how can I go faster if you're whipping me in the legs and you took my food away? That's what you do to your neurons. Your neurons are screwed. They're going to starve and they're going to die. And that's what happens. I look at all these brains. I don't see that, atrophy of parietal temporal lobe. That's all BS. If you read it, there's multiple books have been written about how fake all Alzheimer's research is, okay? They do an autopsy, they can't even diagnose it. They can't diagnose it when the patient's alive. No historical finding, no physical exam finding, no reliable imaging finding, no reliable autopsy finding. Oh, pathognomonic beta amyloid plaques, extracellular, tau plaques, neurofibrillary tangles, intracellular. Yeah, right, they see that in normal people too. All right, so what I'm trying to say is, it's bogus, all right? We know what caused it. The Peter Rogers, MD, supply and demand theory explains it, okay? And it shows you what you can do to avoid all this stuff. So you should be hopeful. It's there, but you can't be a lazy ass and just take one pill. There's 120 mitochondria inhibitors. There's a whole bunch of things that drop oxygen and glucose delivery. There's a whole bunch of things that increase metabolic rate. Sleep deprivation, excessive psychological stress, the stuff I just mentioned to you, MSG in the processed food. But you know, so there's hope. So you don't have to be a victim of fate. You can actually make things better. To me, that's wonderful news. I mean, that's what a blessing could that be? You have hope. You have a logical, rational plan that makes it very clear what you can do to protect your brain cells. So why not do it? There's papers on every single one of these, multiple papers on every single one of these. What I did uniquely was I put it all together. Watson and Crick, they didn't do the experiments on the DNA structure to discover the double helix. They just read all the papers and figured it out. I figured out what causes dementia. I figured out what causes back pain. I figured out how to explain all the common diseases from mouth to mitochondria, all the biochemistry of them, the mechanisms. And it's obvious that you are in charge. The patient, as my really smart AOA, top of their class internal medicine buddies say, is like the patient is the one who has the power. They just don't know they have the power to fix themselves of most of this stuff. I mean, there is some stuff you can't fix by knowing this, but most of it's this way. So anyways, that's what I had to say today about the medical reformation and the hidden history of medicine. I hope you find this stuff helpful. I hope you use it to help yourself, your patients, your loved ones.